Welcome to the January 2024 edition of the Nashville Modern Excel and Power BI User Group. We are so glad to be back after a brief hiatus, and glad that all of you could join us. And welcome to you all from wherever you're joining us from. We were just talking a bit ago. We've got folks from coast to coast joining us today, and glad to have all of you with us. So we got a few things we want to cover today. We got some announcements. We'll have a brief moment for anybody to talk about job opportunities. We'll take a look at what's new in Power BI and Fabric. Of course, we were talking as well before we got started that the last formal meeting we've had as a user group was before Fabric was even a glint in any of our eyes, except for maybe those among us who might be MVPs may have heard. We haven't met since March of 2023, I think. So at that point, Fabric wasn't even announced or in preview, so that's certainly a big thing. But we'll talk about what's new across the rest of the Power Platform, as well as we like to touch on all of those areas, even though one of our main focuses as a group is in Power BI and Excel. And then we'll jump over to our feature presentation today, where we're going to do an intro to Microsoft Fabric. So a couple announcements. Obviously, we are remote today, but we are looking for a meeting space around the Nashville area. So if you might be privy to a space that could accommodate this group on a regular basis, reach out to myself. I'm Michael Hewitt, or reach out to Michael McKinley or Sekou Tyler, and we would love to talk to you about that and get something locked in. We definitely want to be able to see you all in person and hang with you all and fellowship and network and enjoy all that community like this brings. So that is definitely on our radar. We do have a couple more meetings scheduled, though, here in the first quarter of 2024. The first of those being on Thursday, February 15th. We're going to kind of keep on this pattern of talking about introductions and high-level Power BI things. We surveyed a lot of you last year, and most of you said, hey, I'm kind of new to Power BI. I'm new to Fabric, and I'm looking to get plugged in with other people who know more to help me understand some of the basics of Power BI, to help me understand some of the basics of modeling and working with these Microsoft technologies. So we're going to lean into that this year. The next topic we'll have in February, we'll be talking about Microsoft Copilot and offering an introduction to that. Sekou's going to present on that. We're planning to have that meeting virtual as well via Teams. That meeting is up on Meetup right now, and we'll get that advertised as soon as we're done with this one. We've also got Thursday, March 21st scheduled. Michael's going to take us through a requirements gathering 101, right? Because every good data project in any spot of data, we've got to understand what problems we're trying to solve. We've got to get good requirements and understand the why. So Michael's going to walk us through his process. Again, planning to meet virtually via Teams, unless we have a meeting space by then, in which case we will reconsider that. But that's what we've got coming up over the next couple of months. And if you've got a topic that kind of fits this intro to high-level kind of stuff, let us know. We're always open and looking to bring in different speakers to help share your knowledge about all this cool stuff with the community. So reach out to one of us if you'd be interested in presenting at one of our future user group meetings. Couple other announcements about some conferences coming up in the kind of Middle Tennessee, Southeast region. The first of those being DataTune 2024. So this is a new conference in the Nashville area. It's going to be on March 8th and 9th. at Belmont University in the Massey Center. So March 8th will be pre-cons, and then March 9th, that's a Saturday, will be a full day of sessions. So it's $25 to get in, and that's going to cover lunch, I believe. And if you want to add a pre-con onto that, it'd be $150. You can learn more at datatuneconf.com and sign up for that. There's some really great sessions that day. Lots of good stuff that covers everything from engineering to data science to analytics to everything in between in the data world. And it's not just Microsoft stuff. So it's a very tool agnostic conference, which will be really, really cool. Be great to gather with the community around the Nashville area at this one.
Yeah, Michael, I'm just stepping right quick on that one. On
Yep.
the pre-con for DataTune, since we are talking about Fabric, there is a Fabric in a Day pre-conference given by Alex Powers. So if that is something that you're interested in, you want to learn more all about the Fabric, there's an 8-hour conference, pretty good return on your investment because it's from the guy who works for Microsoft. So something to think about if you really just want to gravitate to Fabric. So that's my pitch for that one.
Nice. The other conference coming up actually is just a few weeks away, February 9th and 10th, and that is SQL Saturday Atlanta. This is the BI edition. That's going to be in Alpharetta. Again, it'll be pre-cons on Friday the 9th, full day of sessions then on Saturday the 10th. I think I labeled this one wrong. It's actually a free event, but you can pay $15 and take part in lunch. Yeah, $150 if you want to add a pre-con onto that. And then Damu sent me a couple of the pre-cons. So there's 3 pre-cons available at this one. Paul Turley's going to be talking about designing and developing enterprise scale solutions with Power BI. We've got another one talking about generative AI, ChatGPT, and Azure OpenAI. And then there's also a Fabric in a Day pre-con here at SQL Saturday Atlanta. Alex Powers is doing that one. So either one of the conferences you go to, that option of Fabric in a Day is available to you. So both of these should be really good conferences, lots of good topics. On that one, Dom, was there anything that you want to add about SQL Saturday Atlanta?
Yeah, so it is basically like, as you said, it's a full day of sessions, different sessions on the 10th. And there's 7 tracks with about 6 tracks on each, so about 42 to 45 sessions on whole. So you'll have a lot of things to cover, and you guys are also speaking, like you, Michael McKinley, and Sekou Taylor. All of you guys are coming down.
Yep.
Maybe a good one to go. And also, like, if you guys need any hotel, there's a pre-con. I mean, like, there's a group rate available for the hotel as well. So if you guys want to come down and stay on a day or two, something like that, so that's also available. So, yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I always like to take a quick moment and give anybody an opportunity to share any job openings that they may have at their company, or if you're looking for a job, feel free to let us know in the chat, or you can unmute, and perhaps there's a connection waiting to happen here. So anybody have any openings, or is anybody looking for a job? All right. See one hand raised. Did you have opportunity, or are you looking?
I'm looking for a job.
Okay.
So I have around 6 to 7 years of Power BI experience, from writing DAX code, data modeling, creating star schema, Snowflake models, and I also know Azure Data Factory because we transform all our on-premises data to cloud. So I've done all the transformations in Azure Data Factory as well. And I've made multiple Power Apps, whether it's model driven or Canvas apps, and it has led to tremendous success in the company. in terms of having a seamless HR onboarding process and helping operational efficiency. So pretty Power BI heavy.
All right. All right, I see another hand. Couple more hands. Looks like all folks looking for work. Is that correct?
Let's see if I can chime in. Yes, I'm Yale Madden LifePoint Health. We've got a couple opportunities in our company. They're not within our department. So my team manages the Power BI environment, but these positions are in other departments. I'll paste the links in the chat. One of them is within our quality kind of clinical reporting team. That one's going to be heavy SQL, some data factory, some Power BI, but more on the SQL development and programming side. The other position, it's heavy data engineering. So back end, Azure platform, data factory, Databricks, Synapse, T-SQL programming. Not really any Power BI for the data engineer role. But both of those are posted on the LifePoint website.
Okay.
Quick question: are those remote, or do you need to be in person? Are they on site?
The data engineer is a fully remote position. I believe the other one is open to remote. I know they've got another team member that's remote.
Thank you.
Looks like there's one more hand. Michelle?
Yes, thank you. I have an opportunity coming up. I just recently started my own financial consulting company. I had 16 years in corporate America. So what I did is I rebuilt all the KPI dashboards that I built for corporate, and I'm repurposing, reselling for small businesses. So I'm going to need help with some hourly work for implementing the customization of the models that are built for the small businesses, as well as help with integration with some automation tools with Azure, and something that can help, keep my, I guess, design, protected with integrating SQL Server. So that's the kind of help I'm looking for here in the future.
And Michelle, how can someone get in contact with you?
I can drop my email in the chat.
Perfect. 'Cause I'm asking for myself.
All right. Anybody else?
Yep, I've got a job announcement as well.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. My name is Pedro Medina. I'm the founder of Haystack Data Solutions. We're a full service data agency. We're based in the Twin Cities, but we have clients across the US, and we have several remote, part-time, full-time developer opportunities for Power BI developers with strong DAX and SQL skills. We've got some Azure, Synapse, Data Factory development opportunities as well. And they're all fully remote. And so I'll drop my email in the chat, but you can check us out at haystackdata.com. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. That's all the hands I see raised. I think we've got that covered, but also anytime that you are looking or you have something, feel free to post in our meetup page as well. It's a great way to connect with the community, and always happy to help folks find work or get their role filled. So with that, let's take a look at what's new in Power BI. So the last release of Power BI was the December 2023 update. The team also has mentioned that there isn't a January update just with the holidays. So the next update will be in February. But in December 2023, there was quite a bit of updates to the on-object interaction. So you have a little more option now, whether you want to continue being able to use this new these new features and being able to format and add data on a particular object in the canvas, or revert back to kind of the more classic pane approach. There's a lot of new formatting options out there as well for column and bar charts, and for data labels. And in fact, if I can pull up my Power BI, I wanted to show you all a couple of those updates really quickly. So this is a pretty standard stacked bar chart that you'd see across Power BI. I haven't done a whole lot to try and pretty it up, but a couple of the new features out are that we can change a lot of the way that the individual segments or the entire bar look themselves, stuff that we couldn't do before. So we can adjust the transparency. I really like this one. We can add borders now around our each of our segments. One thing I've noticed though is that if you start to crank up this width, kind of almost makes it look like the segments themselves are shrinking. So be careful with that. But we can add some borders to help define some of these segments a little bit more than we used to be able to do. What's kind of fun about this is that we can do this for all of the segments of our bar charts, or we can break it down by a particular series, right? So we could easily highlight one of the areas. We could remove one of the areas if we wanted to. Lots of different options and use cases for this. Okay, so I'm going to revert that. We've got new options as well to be able to reverse the order. We can sort these segments by their value, right? So that has some interesting use cases. One of the things that the Power BI folks are showing in their blog now is that we can actually put some space in between each series, right? So if you want to be able to, again, highlight some of these different segments in a different way, you can add some space between them. But it's the same thing here. Watch on Australia and Germany, watch those purple bars, right? Kind of looks like they're shrinking. So if you want to do that, I might recommend turning on this series explosion. Keeps the size of those segments the same, where at least in the previous, it kind of looked like they were shrinking. So, anytime we're formatting our data, right, we want to make sure it still displays accurately. But in some use cases, something like this may help to communicate your data more clearly. So I always really like it when they put new formatting options like this into Power BI. I'm kind of one of those who thinks that the more options, the better. So that was kind of fun to be able to play with that and explore some different options there. On the data label side of things, again, just got a very, very typical column chart here. We've actually got a whole lot more options in adding data labels. So, right, this is something what we're used to seeing on a chart like this, right? We get the big number that shows us what's going on with that bar. But we can now add titles to our data labels. And those titles can either be the name of the series, or we can customize it by adding a DAX measure in here. Can do all kinds of formatting to our titles as well to get those to look the way we want. I'm going to turn that off for now. We also have options of adding further detail. to our data labels, add a little bit of context. So I put together a quick example here. It'll let me add it. There it goes. So you can add, in this case, we're just looking at, hey, we know for 2020 we sold this much product. How's that compared to last year? And then with a little bit of additional formatting, we can get that to look the way we want it to, and really play around and add a lot of additional context in our data labels that we may have used to have to rely on other methods for adding that context. Some really cool stuff here. Seems fairly simple and straightforward, but I think is a good step forward in adding context and really being able to pretty up these charts in a meaningful way, so to speak. Okay. So plenty of new visualizations as well this month. The only other thing I'll particularly highlight is as you're working in Power BI Desktop, continue to take a look at this One Lake Data Hub as new things in Fabric are being released. This is where a lot of the connectivity between Power BI Desktop and these Fabric components are getting dropped. So there's some cool stuff there to check out. What's new in Fabric? Well, a lot of stuff is new. Not going to go through this bullet by bullet, but they are really doing a lot of work in Fabric right now, obviously, with this being the newest product introduction. We're going to talk a whole lot more about Fabric later on today, but just know that there's a lot of innovation going on here, a lot to keep up with here. In Excel, not a whole lot of updates. November 2023 was the last update, but there are some new group by and pivot by functions that have been released both for Windows and for Mac. Pretty interesting. If you need to do any grouping or pivoting, you can now do that by function. Can be really handy it seems like for some really quick stuff. So those are pretty cool ones that you might want to take a look at as well. In Power Apps, there's continual updates happening here. So cards for Power Apps are now supported in the application lifecycle management and DLP. That's a pretty cool update. There's now improved PowerFX formula bar, and that's available by default in new apps. Named formulas is now GA. So lots of cool things happening here. And you're able to extend Copilot as well with Power Platform plugins. So Copilot is really working its way into a lot of products. Pretty cool to see that one hitting Power Apps as well. In Power Automate, again, not a whole lot new in the desktop for December 2023. But one of the things that caught my attention about Power Automate that's been a recent update is that the AI Builder GPT prompts are generally available. So if that's an area that you're interested in, check that out. That could be really useful in helping to tie into these new technologies, with Power Automate. So cool stuff happening there as well. So with that, let's jump over and get to our featured presentation for the day. Michael, myself, and Sekou, we're all going to kind of tag team here and just talk a little bit about Microsoft Fabric. We've all had an opportunity to dive in, start playing with this, and want to share some of the things that we're finding, some of the things that we've learned over the last few months, and try to help you all get started or progress in your journey with Microsoft Fabric. So as we mentioned before, like the last time we met, this wasn't even like on any of our radar. So it's been kind of fun to see this product get announced, become generally available, and start to play with it. So if a year ago, I don't even know that we would have known that this would have been a topic we were going to cover, but it's been a whole lot of fun to prepare for it and to get to talk to you about today. So at a high level, Fabric actually, in as much as it is a new product, it really takes a lot of flavors from existing products and brings them all together under this one banner of Microsoft Fabric. So we get flavors of Data Factory, and if you've used Azure Data Factory, it's very, very similar to what you would see in Data Factory and Fabric. If you've done any work in Synapse before, right, you get aspects of data engineering and warehousing and data science and some of the real-time analytics products or features rather that was getting offered in Synapse, brings it into Fabric. Probably the most noticeable place that you've noticed Fabric already is in Power BI, because Fabric really centers everything around Power BI and what we've known as the Power BI service for a very long time, right? So all of the offering is in this kind of workspace app, this UI that Power BI folks have been using for a long time. And brings it all together into one product, integrates it all together so that it's fairly seamless. And all of that stands on top of one lake, which is basically like this gigantic data lake that you get for your company. And any data that you bring in, whether it's through Data Factory or your data is living in a Power BI data set or somewhere in between, all of it sits on top of this one lake. All of this then is being offered as software as a service. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like for you in just a moment. If we take a little deeper look, both of these graphics I'm showing come right from the Fabric documentation on the Microsoft site. So you can deep dive on any of these things. That'd be a little beyond the scope of our talk today to deep dive on any of it. But if you do want to know more than we shared today, that's where a lot of this information is coming from. So what's really cool is all of these things that we talked about before. There's a serverless compute layer, right? So you can bring in any of the different languages that you're comfortable with. So we've got options of writing SQL, we've got options of writing Python, we've got options of working in Spark clusters to access this one lake. And we get all the benefits of working in Delta Parquet format under the hood, but we can connect data factories and Power BI reports and real-time analytics. All of this kind of ties back to that one lake. We've got easy security that we can implement to keep all of this in line. And again, the benefits of it being that all of it really starts to work together. So everything that we're doing, top to bottom, is really meant to be nice and easy and simple. Whether or not that's how it boils out when we do it, that remains to be seen. But that's been the goal all along. So how do you get Fabric? In fact, this might be the easiest part of Fabric to understand. Really, all you have to do is log into app.fabric.microsoft.com, and you can sign up for a free 60-day trial right there. Or as a Microsoft employee recently once told me, hey, if you're in Power BI and you've got a premium per user or a premium capacity, you already have Fabric. It's so integrated with what they're already doing that the change in some ways has been very gradual. We've almost not noticed it, but in other ways, there's been a lot more offerings. Okay, so really all you got to do is log in to get started. There is a couple of things I wanted to make you aware of. There are two different ways. Once you've finished your trial and want to get into using Fabric on a more day-to-day, long-term basis. Just like with Power BI, there's really two different ways of getting licensed. One of those is signing up for a capacity license, and this is what those different SKUs look like. So this is kind of the big boy, right? You want to pay for a dedicated capacity where you can up your capacity units, up your vCores to increase your storage and your compute. And obviously, the more you increase, the more you're going to incur that cost on a regular basis. And the other way is that they're also offering a per user license. Again, just like what we've seen in the past with Power BI Premium. So there's still going to be the free license available that lets you create things published to your workspace and do some of the basic work. Mostly around Power BI. You can upgrade to a pro license, start to get the benefits of sharing, additional features. But then when you get up to that PPU license, which is really much more affordable, that per user license for smaller, even to mid-size organizations where you've got less than 250 users who want to utilize these features and capabilities, right? You can pay a smaller amount, still get all the benefits of working in Fabric, all the features, without having to buy a dedicated capacity. So both of these graphics are available on the Microsoft site. You can dig in a little bit more into what all of that looks like and how to best choose a licensing option for your organization. And one other thing we wanted to bring to your attention is that Microsoft's recently introduced this new career hub, this Fabric career hub. I'm going to actually jump over there and show this site to you guys. So they've brought together all the information about getting certified in Microsoft Fabric. In fact, based on what they're showing here, actually the certification exams are still in progress, but all the work that you would need to do as far as preparing for that, guided learning opportunities are available here. Group learning opportunities are available here. And then as you move further down the site, it gives you some more information and some testimonials about, hey, if I do this, what can I actually do? What kind of roles can utilize this knowledge in Fabric? Where can I take this as a job once I get a little bit of experience and knowledge about how all this works? So this is going to be a really nice spot for folks to come who want to kind of get started on their journey and look to increase their skills and what is the latest product in this Microsoft data stack. The only last thing I'd add is I don't think they're trying to necessarily blow away any of the old products. So even though we've got flavors of things that are new here, I think they're just trying to give different opportunities for folks to be able to get in on this modern architecture, these data lakes, these data lake houses, and give us even more power, but use some familiar tools for those of us who aren't necessarily engineers, but have some engineer skill. Don't necessarily quote me on that. That's just been my take so far in playing with Fabric. So that's going to do it for me. With that, I'm going to let Sekou and let Michael take this over, and they're going to show you some demos in Fabric. I think you guys really gonna like this part. Take it away, guys.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate that intro. So my job today is I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the Power BI service. So as Michael was pointing out, the Power BI service is sort of one component in a superset of Microsoft Fabric, and that includes Data Factory, the Synapse Data Engineering, Synapse Data Science, and so forth. So there's a lot of different tools in there that the Power BI service is really now sort of a subset of that. And so what I want to do is I want to give you sort of a crash course in the Power BI service, and I'm actually going to try to leave as much time as I can for Sekou, because he's got some really fascinating things to talk about with those other aspects. So I want to try to give as much time to him as I can. So what I want to do is just go through a really high level overview of some of the things in the Power BI service. We're not really going to talk about like how to do the various things. I just want to sort of tease some of the things that are possible, are available in the service, and then we can go into them in more depth in a later session. So I'm going to show you guys the service in just one second. But before I do that, I just want to sort of go back to the basics. So what is the service? Why do we have it? Why does it exist? And so, so this is less and less the case now, and I'll talk about that in more detail, but you still predominantly author content, create content in Power BI Desktop. Again, that's proving to be less and less the case all the time, and I'll elaborate on that in a bit. And if that's all that you do is you build reports in Power BI Desktop, you can consume those reports in Desktop. They look fine. It works great. Sometimes it can be a little taxing on your system depending on how much data that you are working on, and it can be a little difficult to share it with somebody. If someone says, "Hey, email me that file," can be 100 megabytes. It can be a bit challenging. And so originally, the Power BI service was a way for you to share your Power BI content, because sending someone a PBX file may not be the most straightforward way to do that. So I'm going to share my screen, and I just want to show you guys what the Power BI service looks like. So I'm going to come here, and so this is the home page for the Power BI service, and so you got like some recent reports that you looked at down here. You've got some favorites. You've got your apps. I'll come back to the apps in a little bit. And so you've got some navigation points on the left. Now, traditionally, as I said, most of your authoring experience happened in Power BI Desktop. That is less and less the case. Originally, they allowed you to first to edit existing reports and then to build brand new reports on existing data. Now you can even do some basic data set creation, and I think, I'm not certain of this, but I just reading between the lines, I think that they are working towards having parity in functionality, building data sets and building reports in the service as what they have in Power BI Desktop, and so you'll be able to do everything in the service as you can do in the desktop. Again, that's just me. That's my assessment. I think that's where they're headed, but certainly they do seem to be closing that gap. Here's that the OneLake Data Hub that Michael was mentioning a bit earlier. So I just want to point out that the things that are here on this left navigation side. I'm not going to spend too much time in each of these. These are your apps where they will show up. I'll just talk more about that in a moment. Metrics is something I actually don't really use a great deal. This is sort of like, I don't know, it's almost kind of like Power BI Lite. It's you can create KPIs and scorecards, and they can sort of aggregate up and spread goals down. And think, for example, you have a sales team and you want to meet every day to see how are people progressing on meeting their sales goals. This might be a good tool for that. You can also use a Power BI report that I think would work fine for it. As we build more and more stuff, ETL pipelines, data science workflows, et cetera, in the Power BI service, you're going to want to track how those processes are working. You want to see, how much time is it taking, whether or not something has failed or has completed successfully. The monitoring hub is a place where you can do that. You can look at your refreshes, your ETL pipelines, your data science workflows, and so forth. You can see how those are moving along. Something that I really want to spend some time focusing on, though, is workspaces. And workspaces are a little bit like kind of rooms in a building. It's just sort of how we segment things in Power BI. Most things are going to live inside of a workspace. Now, I'm actually going to show you my workspace. Everybody who has access to Power BI should have a My Workspace. And this is sort of your playground to publish stuff for yourself. Now, you can't share out of My Workspace. So this is really just for you to consume the content, for you to sort of this is for you to create stuff for yourself, basically. And that's fine. If that's all that you need it for, if that's all that you want to use it for, then that works perfectly fine. I don't really do a ton in my workspace because typically I will just build a dedicated workspace for it. At Alliance Bernstein, where I work, my development team, we own something like 70 different workspaces. Now, that is in part because most of the projects we have will have a dev, a QA, and a production workspace, and I'll show that to you in a few minutes. But the number of workspaces that you use, they can scale over time. You can get quite a few of them. So if I click on workspaces, so you'll see a list of your workspaces here. I can search for them. So if I wanted to look for AdventureWorks, so I can see that I've got an AdventureWorks workspace here. These last two lines, this deployment pipelines, I'm going to come back to that when I talk about the dev, QA, and production workspaces. And you can also create a new workspace here. So if I open up this AdventureWorks workspace, so this is where all of my content for AdventureWorks is going to exist. Now, this one doesn't happen to have a dev QA production framework. There's just one workspace for this. And you'll notice that we've got a semantic model. Now, you might hear this term data set, data model, semantic model. These are all just different terms for the same thing. The semantic model is sort of two things in a way. Number one is all the metadata about your data. It's the tables, it's the columns, it's the data types of all the columns, it's the relationships between the tables, the calculated measures, the formatting for the measures. If you add descriptions, all of that stuff is all that metadata about your data is all in this semantic model. The other thing that's in that model is the actual data itself. And so when I open up a report here, and if I go, say, to the second page, when this renders, what this is doing is this is converting each of these tables, each of these visuals into a DAX query, and it's going to run that DAX query against the Power BI data set, that semantic model that I was just showing you. So in that case, it would be this guy right here. So it's going to run that DAX query against that data model, and it's going to generate a result set, which Power BI then visualizes. In this case, in a clustered column graph. Here is it's a line graph. Here we have some visuals, just some card visuals, and so. So this is the sort of basic fundamental idea of what you might do in Power BI. You're going to create some content, create a report, publish it to a workspace, and then I can share that report. So I can come to this report and I can say manage access, and I can grant Sekou, I can grant Michael access to this workspace, and they can come in here and they can look at the report. Depending on what level of access I grant them, they can do different things. Maybe they can refresh the report, etc. That's another nice thing that I want to mention. In the Power BI service, you can manually refresh reports. Now, you just click on this refresh now. You'll notice there's actually this little orange triangle here with an exclamation mark. What that's telling me is that my data gateway is down, and that's because I haven't really used this report in some time. I need to fix this, but the data gateway and actually the data set behind the SQL Server behind it are decommissioned. In fact, the physical machine that those were on actually died a while back, so I need to find a solution to that. So I can't refresh this right now, but you can imagine if that were working, you can do a manual refresh whenever you want. If I click this ellipsis and I go to settings, there's a section here for refresh, so I can schedule a refresh. If the workspace is a Power BI Pro workspace, I can do 8 refreshes per day. If it is a Power BI Premium workspace, I can do up to 48 refreshes per day, so I can do it at the top and bottom of each hour. I can also refresh via an API command. So I can send an API command. PowerShell does the same thing as you can use PowerShell, but it's basically sent an API command behind the scenes. And what that will do is trigger a refresh in the data set. You can also, so it's equivalent to sort of hitting this manual refresh button, but you do it in an automated fashion. So what I have at Lance Bernstein is we have processes that will refresh a database. Once that is complete, it'll trigger a refresh of the data set and then pull the information from the database into that data set. So it makes everything streamlined and very automated. Another nice thing about this is that we can secure this. So first of all, the only people who are going to have access to this report are the people who have access to the workspace. And I talked about adding people to the workspace a moment ago, and people with whom we share the app. Now, I'm going to come back to sharing the app in just a second, but I also want to talk about the other way to secure these assets, and that is via role-level security. And so I don't have anything that I can share with you right now that has role-level security set up. But if I open up this report and I want to so I'm looking for so if we had, so for example, if we had a sales executive who was in charge of accessories, for example, but had no business looking at the bike's sales data. A better example of this might be if you had sales territories. Maybe you want someone to see the data for the territory that they cover, but not anyone else's sales territory. Or if you want them to see information for themselves and the people who report to them, but nobody else. Those are the sorts of things that you can use role-level security for. And that allows you to show people only the segments of the data that they are supposed to see. Let me come back out to the workspace for a second. And I did mention that you can publish the content via apps. And sharing the content via apps is really a better way to share content than sharing an individual report. And I'd say there's a simple reason. There's a few reasons for this, but one reason is this report has a URL. If I were to drop this report and republish it, this GUID right here would change, which means that your URL would change and then the link would die. It's a frustrating process, but the app, it stays the same. So you don't really have to worry about the URL for the app changing. It's one nice thing, but another nice thing, if I come to update and I go to audience, so I can create multiple audiences here. And I can show different reports to different audiences. So I can't hide individual report pages. I'm hoping that they're going to add that functionality in the future. But currently I can show and hide individual reports only. And so I show and hide all the report pages that are within that report. And another nice thing is I can add to this app audience people who I maybe don't want to be a workspace user. Anyone who is a member of the workspace, they have access to all the content in that workspace. And like I say, I may want them only to see one of the reports or some subset of the reports. And that is something I can control using app audiences, but not necessarily in the workspace. And so that's one reason why sharing content via apps is a great way to share the content. We had someone who was talking earlier about self-service, and so I just want to take a second to talk about some of the self-service functionalities in the Microsoft service, and so the Power BI service. And so I was talking about how when you generate this report, each of the visuals sort of renders a DAX query behind the scenes and then runs that query in live time against this semantic model that it's connected to. Well, you don't necessarily have to have a Power BI report to do that. though you certainly can have several Power BI reports that do it. All 4 of these reports, they're sort of iterations on one another, but they all point to the same semantic model. So I have one data set, one semantic model that powers all 4 of these reports. I could have it powering many more reports. I could have it powering Excel files. And so if you click the ellipsis here and you use this analyze an Excel function, so this is what I like to think of as self-service, but I'm going to show you something that's a little bit newer in just a second. When you do that, then you can open something in Excel, and this looks like a standard pivot table because it is. And what I can do is I can search for year. And if I come down to the date table and I drag year month down here, so I get a list of all the years and months that are in my data set. And this is what this is doing is this is simply generate, just like the Power BI report, it's generating a DAX query, is running it against that data set in real time. And so I'm getting the same results from the same logic, from the same data. And I only have to build that data set once. I only have to build that logic once. If I search for if I search for contribution margin, so if I drag this contribution margin dollars down here, so now I can see my contribution margin dollars for each of the months in question. I can filter this by, say, year, territory, category, etc. And this is doing the same thing. It's just generating a DAX query behind the scenes, sending that to the Power BI service, running that result and sending the result set, running the query and sending the result set back. There's something that's a bit newer, still in preview, this export this data. So if I click on this, you can do basically the same thing. So if we just search for year and drag this in here, and search for contribution margin, and let me sure get the right one. If we drag this in here, again, you're getting the exact same result, but in a different way. I can save this out. I can save it as a report if I want to. I can come back to this regularly. You can also click on this visual section down here, and it offers a suggested visual. That's, pretty basic, but it does the job, and it fits what I asked for. And if you add more detail in there, then it'll customize that visual for you. So this is a great way of promoting self-service by creating one data set that contains your data, contains your business logic, your business rules, and then you reuse that for different reporting. And that helps you if you're creating reporting for other people, but it also helps other people if they're creating reporting for themselves. It enables them to do that reporting for themselves. I oftentimes think to myself, I am successful in self-reporting when it is easier for somebody to interrogate their own data than it is for them to ask me, for them to write me an email and ask me a question. So if I can do that, then I know that I'm being successful. Just quickly, I want to talk about how Power BI can integrate with lots of other Microsoft services. Seiku's going to talk to you in a minute about a lot of the new features in Fabric. These are all Microsoft services as well. But I want to show you something that I thought was really cool. So this is I don't know if you've ever had if you've ever worked with an action log. I used to work with an action log that was in Excel. This was a little while ago now, but we had a lot of problems with it because there were version control problems. People wanted to have the report open at the same time. Somebody would forget to close the report. You couldn't get in and update it. And so I built a very simple action log Power App. And the Power App stands alone. You can use it on a phone, use it on a tablet. But one nice thing here is that you can actually embed that Power App inside of a report. I mean, this is a very basic report. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it works. If I wanted to see, show me Michael McKinley's actions, and if any of them are behind schedule, then I can see them here. I can open up this app and open up this action, and I can make updates on this. This button here will send me an email, and you'll hear the ping in just a second as the email hits my inbox. This is a very simple app, as I say, but I just want to point out the fact that you can really integrate, there it is, a lot of different Microsoft services together. The other points that I just don't have the time to go into are, sorry, actually, I do want to show you deployment pipelines very quickly. So if I click on this ellipsis and go to deployment pipelines, and I've got one that's built here. And so what I have are 3 different workspaces for dev, test, or QA in production. And so you can see that you can see the different content that's in each one. And I can see that there's a difference between the test and the QA. However, the QA and production are in sync, and I can even see that there's a difference between the data sets in the two. And I can look at this difference to see, what is the difference. And this will show me that there is some trivial difference that I think is insignificant here. I don't want to wait for that to finish. There we go. It's usually quite quick. And I'm not even sure what this is, but some minor thing. And so you can decide whether or not you want to roll that code change forward from dev to QA. There's lots of really amazing things that have come up that I don't have the time to talk to you about, like Fabric's integration with Azure DevOps and how that allows for application lifecycle management and CI/CD. Those are some really fascinating things that I'm super interested in. You also have embedding options, so you can actually build a report and embed that into a full-blown application or a web app. And so you can do reporting very easily in a web app that way, if that's something that's important to you. There's also a mobile app, and mobile apps can look at native reports, but it's a better experience if you build an app build a report that's designed to be consumed by mobile. You have usage and analytics monitoring, so you can see how much people are looking at your reports, how long are they spending on them, how long is it taking for them to load, so on and so forth. So there's a ton of things that you can do in the service. That's just a very high level view. But I want to turn it over to Sekou, who's going to show you some really fascinating things in Microsoft Fabric.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great. So let me get my screen up and going. All right. So I am going to talk about some of the things you can do in Fabric. So Michael hit it on the head, right? There's a lot of different things that are going on. There's a lot of different products that are a part of Fabric. And as you see right now, I'm in my personal workspace. So Michael showed his personal workspace, and then you can create a workspace specifically for Fabric or Premium per user. So just to show you what that really looks like, if you were to create a new workspace, you can just come in here and select new workspace. You can call it Power BI, whatever you want to give it a name. And then now, when you look at the different type of workspaces that are available, you'll see different options. Right now, I'm on a trial license. I'm not paying for Fabric right now. I just keep refreshing it, and I'm just going to wait for them to kick me off. But right now, I'm using the 60-day free trial license for anything that I'm building out. So this is part of that trial. Or you can do Pro, or you can do Premium per user. But here are the different capacities. And then if you're on Premium capacity, you can allow it to be Premium capacity if you have embedded. And then there's also Fabric capacity as well. So that could be a whole separate section on licensing and structure and consumption and SKUs and all this other stuff. We're not going to go into that today, but just know there is a difference between actual per user and then the different capacities. And then within the capacities, is it just what level are you using? So just be mindful of that. But I'm not going to create it, but this is how you could create an actual Fabric workspace if you wanted to. So I do have one built out. Another thing as well, as you see in the bottom left, the actual menu is a little different now. So you see now you can actually select Power BI, but then if you're in a Fabric workspace, you see the different options that are available. So you see Data Factory, Data Activator, and then you have your standard Synapse stuff, engineering, data science, warehouse, real-time analytics. And then it gives you the ability, just from a UX UI perspective, to get the different products a lot faster. But if you also select this Microsoft Fabric button, it takes you to this experience now. So as Michael pointed out, when we first started, here are the different products within OneLake. If you select Microsoft Fabric, they're doing the exact same thing. So they're trying to really put an emphasis on all your data in one location, and you can do with it as you want. So the goal is, if you are a data engineer, you can use Fabric for your data engineering. If you are a data scientist, if you're a data analyst, if you're an analytics engineer, whatever it is, right? You do all this in one particular place. So I'm going to walk through a couple of really high-level examples. In fact, I am actually doing everything on Microsoft Learn. So if you want to do this on your spare time, I can post a link in here before I'm out, but this will be one of the links that you can do. There's a tutorial Fabric for Power BI users. For this example, I did not want to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to actually just walk through some simple things. So if you want to go through here, go out to the Microsoft website, get a trial license and walk through it and really start picking it up. I think it's really great. It's helped me pick it up. But in this example, what I'm going to do is use actual data factory right now. And so as Michael alluded to earlier, is that there is this movement to try and get as much stuff done online as possible and not necessarily use your local machine. So one of the new pieces that came out was Data Flow Gen 2. And so in this particular example, I need to go to my workspace. There we go. So if I were to come in here, we see now we have different things that we can actually leverage. There's data pipeline, which allows you to copy, create, and do a lot of different things as well. You have Data Flow Gen 2, you have environment. Event Stream allows for like streaming capabilities. If you want to do experiments, if you do anything machine learning, KQL. Lakehouse is where you can basically use Parquet, CSVs, different file types, structured, non-structured. If you have a structured relational database that can live within your lakehouse, if you have just files that you are using that can live in your lakehouse as well. ML model, notebooks. So if you're used to Jupyter notebooks or any type of Python or scripting, this is where you can come in and actually start creating workbooks. You have Reflex, which is basically data activator that allows you to look at different thresholds. It's in preview right now, so there'll be a lot of good stuff going out. Of course, we have Power BI reports, and then Spark Jobs, and then Warehouse as well as your data warehouse. For today, what I'm specifically going to do a quick demo on will be Data Flow Gen 2 and show you what a lakehouse is, and then I'll do a real simple notebook. Again, not a Python developer. I'm just following what's out there. But in this example, I'll just go ahead and create a new Data Flow Gen 2. And what this will be familiar with, if you're used to Power Query, this is basically Power Query Online. This is exactly what this is. And so you see the exact same Power Query in the top left corner. You see this, the menu that you're used to seeing: home, transform, add column, view, help, so on and so forth. And the first piece of this is like, I actually want to connect the data and pull some data in. So let me go and actually bring this in from a public place. So from the example that I have, I'm actually going to use OData, and I'm going to use this particular URL to bring it in. And if I select next, we'll see now that you will see the standard Power Query field that you're used to looking at. So you have the ability to select the tables that you need and then whatever you want to bring in. So in this example, I'm just going to bring in customers and orders. And then go ahead and hit create. And so now you have the standard Power Query field that you're used to seeing. And so if you want to remove columns, if you wanted to do any type of edit, so let's say I don't want this orders or customer demographics. Let's say I want to remove these two. I could do the same look and feel, right click, hit remove other columns. That's not what I wanted. Actually, I wanted to keep these columns. If I click on these, right click and say remove columns. That's what I want. I can do remove columns. I can do the standard stuff that I'm used to doing on Power BI desktop. Same thing as well if I go to orders. If I want to come in here and create some aggregation. So if I come in here and go to transform, if I do group by, if I want to do my order, let's do customer ID, and then we do count rows. We'll see now that I've done the same group by that I'm used to doing. And then I have my information. So, you know, same look and feel that we're used to seeing. Now, if I want to merge queries, bring those two together, if I have orders, and then if I bring in customers, now I have the ability to do a left outer join, right outer join, full outer, inner, different join. So you have the ability to do the different type of join types that you're used to doing. If I select customer ID, we'll see that I have a selection on here, and I can just select OK. And then now, if I want to expand it and I only want to keep, let's say, I really just care about a few of these: city, region, postal code, country. I just want the geographical information. I can come and extend it, and then I have the information that I want. So here's an example of how I could have an output. If I wanted to create a rank or any type of custom columns, there's this new one up here called a rank that will automatically generate a rank for me. So if I select it, let's say I only want to rank it by highest lowest, right? I'm just going to do something on the fly. So we'll see what it does. It's generated a rank for me. I have the columns that it did, and now I have my rank based on what I told it to do. Naturally, you probably want to do this based on the count or whatever you want to describe it as, but right now I just did a default rank. And then now, the biggest difference before this Gen 2 is you now have the ability to write to an actual data lake or to a place that you want. Before, Power Query was only read-only, so you can only consume your information and then ingest it, and then you can write it to Power BI warehouse, or I'm sorry, you can write it to Power BI service, and then you can connect it this way. Now you can actually do a lot of your transformations, and then if you select in the bottom right of data destination, you hit this plus bar, you will see the different options that you have that are capable of writing to. So if you have an Azure SQL database, Lakehouse, if you're using custom or warehouse as well, you can write to these 4 different locations. So that within itself, I believe, is a really good game changer. So if you come in here, and if I want to write this, select Lakehouse, you can either generate one that you already have built out, or you can create a new one. So I already have one created. So if I hit next, we'll see that it does the validation. And then from here, this is my Lakehouse. So this is looking at my individual workspace that I have built out. So right now I have 2 different areas. I have Power BI demo, and then I have just a Royal Blue Analytics Lakehouse that I have built out. But for this example, it's looking for the table name, and the table name is based on the query that I created. So if I just want to keep it merge, let's call it something else. Actually, no, keep it that way. We'll keep it merge. And then I select that I want it to go into my Power BI demo. We'll see that it says a new table will be created in Power BI demo in my Fabric workspace. So if I go ahead and select next, now you see you have the ability to either update your information. So if I want to replace the information that is there, I can select replace. If I already have something there, I have the ability to quickly select append. So if you're trying to bring in information at a daily level, hourly level, whatever it is, or if you just want to add to it, you can append your data as well. So being able to do this on the fly really quick, it's really awesome, I think. I think it gives you the capabilities to really get some self-service components out there. And then from there, you have your type. So if you want to change the type of field, you can do that quickly here with the drop down. So in your standard Power Query things that you would see, your currency, date, time, zone, so on and so forth. But right now, I'm just going to keep it as is and select Save Settings. And now, as well, another thing is there is this good diagram view as well. So as I create that stuff out, right, we're used to clicking and clicking, but if I want to actually look at a diagram, I can click on the diagram view in the bottom right, and it'll show me what I'm actually doing. So it'll show me the join and how I'm bringing it together, and then the actual steps as well. And then there's also a query script. So if I want to see the query, just like what we do in Advanced Editor, there's that query script as well within Gen 2. So a lot of cool stuff that gives you a lot of information really quick. And if you want to go back, you can go back to your show data view, or you can go back to your show schema view. And then you also have the capabilities of showing diagnostics as well. And that's somewhere in here, and I'm blanking. But you can do your standard diagnostic stuff that you will want to do. Your column profile, your show qualities, et cetera, that you do. So pretty much same look and feel that's trying to do within Power Query. You would have that on here. So if we go back home, got our view, everything's good. I can select publish now, or I can select publish later. I'll go ahead and select publish. And we'll see that it has published. I didn't give it a name, bad practice. Give your stuff a name so you know exactly what you're doing. Don't just call it data flow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you don't know what you're doing. Give it a name. And you'll be able to edit it once it's done as well. But for this example, I'm just going to let it run. And from there, you'll be able to connect to it from the Power BI. So as Michael showed you, you can go to Power BI, you can go within house and then connect to your actual layer and actually start doing some reporting on there. So I'll let this run. So now that it's done, let's see if I can go to Power BI itself and create a new report. And if I go to pick a publish semantic model, we'll see, we'll go to Power BI demo, see if I can generate something here. I want to create a report. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't do this right. But basically, if you have it pushed up, you can connect to it from here, and then you start doing reports on top of it, and then you'll be good to go. So something going on in my warehouse, it's all good, but that's how you could do that. So really, really high level. There's a lot of good stuff that you can do with that, with your pipelines, and getting that up and running. Another thing that you can do is if you are trying to basically learn different things outside of like Power Query, which you're like, hey, I actually want to do like some Python. I want to start writing and creating workbooks. What you can do is actually start generating workbooks directly in here, and you can start using Spark, Python, or SQL. So I'll show you a workbook that I basically built out, again, using this tutorial of workbook. So I'm using this tutorial for today. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's a data science tutorial that you can actually go through. I'm using the sales forecasting one just because I want to see look and feel and some of the stuff that is available. But if you really walk through it, it's really awesome. It gives you some good details. I'm personally, again, I'm not a machine learning person. I don't know about scoring the model and like some of the terminology. I can understand the concepts, but if you would have asked me some of these questions while I was going through it, I was like, I don't know. So, but this gives you, if that's something of interest, you could definitely, set up your ML flow and go through it and walk through it. So I'll quickly show you what that looks like from the Fabric perspective, and then some of the cool things that you can do as well. So if we go into here, and go back to my Fabric workspace and go to my notebook that I built out. So this is what the notebook now looks like. So basically, this is where you would come in and you would start leveraging, start creating notebooks. So if you use the Jupyter notebooks, if you use any type of coding like that, this has the same look and feel. From a menu standpoint, you have your run all. So if you want to run every single command, you could do it as well. If you want to save it, if you want to download your workbook, you could download it as a notebook, HTML, Python, or different formats as well. You have your settings. You could change the name of it to not Notebook 1, but Power BI example. And it should let me scroll down and hit OK. I think there's an arrow somewhere, but yeah. So you just close it out actually, and it does Power BI example. Another thing as well is if you're using different languages within Spark, you can quickly come up to the menu and select what type of language that you want to look at. So if you want to look at PySpark, Spark Scala, Spark SQL, Spark R, you can do that as well. By default, I'm just going to keep it Python. If you have different environments that you have built out and different compute and different just more technical behind the scenes stuff, you have the ability to create a new environment and change that environment really quickly on the fly. Or you can use parameters as well. It really just depends on how you want to code it out. If you're using VS Code, you can open this up in VS Code as well. And then from here, because my SKU doesn't allow Copilot, of course it graded out. But if you're using Copilot, then you can actually leverage Copilot directly into your workbooks as well. You could create comments and you can see who's editing and all that information. But really quick example, I'm going to come in here and actually kick this thing off. And let it run. I think we're good. So by default, just some of this code that it's doing is basically looking at my root folder and it's creating the file forecast, and then it's looking just for the Superstore data that's already there. If I come in here and select not custom, I think I ran this before, so it's probably yelling at me for whatever reason. So because I already have the file in here. Yeah, I already have the Superstore file in my files. And then actually as well, it's kind of backtrack to what I built on the data query portion of it. You can see my merge file that I built out is out here as well. So you'll see everything that you built out. You have your different tables and you have your files as well. So this gives you the view of what you have available in your lakehouse. So this is my Power BI demo lakehouse. But if I go back to my workspace of running this, if I just go into do ML flow, and let that run. Let's see that it's running. And then it does not like my experiment. What happens when you do stuff right before a demo? It just yells at you. So it was working. There we go. Now let's try it. All right, there we go. So now we're running our flow. We have our experiment, we have our information, and then now we have our actual Panda where we're actually reading in that Excel file that is living in our raw layer. So if I select this button, I've created a quick data frame that will now allow me to view the information in here. And then from a Python standpoint, if I wanted to display the information, if I hit the plus bar, now I can actually display my data frame in here. So now I can see the actual records that are in here directly in the workbook. There's also a really cool thing that they have built out called transform your data frame in Data Wrangler. So because I have a data frame built out, if I select this transform data frame in Data Wrangler, it allows me to do low code transformations to my data frame. So now what this does, it brings up a different page, and there are default functions that I can do directly in here. So if I wanted to drop duplicate rows, I can select drop duplicate rows, and I can tell it what targets that I want to do it for. All right, so normally it will let me select, let's say if I want to do order ID, I can do that, or if I want to do something else. For right now, it doesn't want to do that. But let's say I wanted to drop duplicate rows. That's not working either. Nope. None of this stuff is working because I'm like talking to you on the fly. So let's see here. I might have to refresh it. But normally, but normally you'd be able to select the columns that you want to do these operations for. So just imagine, like, think with me that this is actually working right now, and I'll figure it out afterwards. But imagine that this was working and I want to drop a duplicate row. I can tell the table that I wanted to. So if I selected order ID, it would select order ID and then it would run that operation for me. And then it would create that data frame. And then I would be able to leverage that going forward. I can save it as CSV, or I can leverage it more into my actual workbook, and then I'd be able to run it. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that as someone, if you're not necessarily a Python developer, or if you're trying to do a lot of low code or different things, again, like Power Query, you can click a button and it'll do things for you. This has the same exact look and feel for you. So you can do a lot of different changes and a lot of different quick things within Data Wrangler. So this is a product within workbooks. And I think it's only specific if you're using a Python data frame. There could be some nuances there, but again, not a data scientist, it's just stuff I've been reading online. But this is a really cool example of this, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and fast forward and pretend I was actually going through all this ML flow, which I'm not at the moment. But if you want to train your model, you can train your model, you can do that, you can score it, you can do predictions. And then from there, let's pretend like everything was great. I spit this information out to my lakehouse. You now have an ML forecast that you can spit out, and then you can start leveraging your data visualization. Do not create this visualization if you're going to do this. This is not great. But you can have the data itself that is there for you to create visualizations and start doing that predictive modeling and creating some information. So real quick examples of how you can leverage Fabric. I know we're close to time. A lot of great stuff out there, but always recommend, if you can, just get out there, start playing around, get a trial license. And the only way you're going to learn is to actually start clicking around and start figuring it out. So that's all I got.
All right. Thanks, guys. Looks like we got about 5 minutes here. Who's got some questions?
Hey guys, this is Pedro again. I have just one question. I think Madden kind of helped answer it a little bit earlier, but we have a number of workflows, data pipelines built out in Azure Data Factory, Azure Synapse, kind of that whole infra side. And then we've been dabbling in PPU licenses, premium workspaces on the Power BI side. And we're getting to a point where we're doing that cost analysis where when does it make sense to jump directly into Fabric, which was, formerly known as premium capacity, and then what impact is that going to have to the extensive amount of work that we've done in Azure and in Azure Data Factory and Synapse and all that? How do you migrate that work, or does it migrate seamlessly? And what resources are available out there to help us make that decision, in terms of when it's right, these SKU levels, these F64, how do you take your CUs, I think, capacity units or whatever they're called, under your current infrastructure, and then compare it vis-a-vis Fabric, and then say, okay, yep, we're probably at that F64 level, or we're something else above or beyond, without getting in over your head. I guess, has anybody had any experience doing that sort of migration?
No experience yet with it, just because Fabric, is still new, and it's kind of that maturation process, or when should I move over, and how much am I spending versus the migration element of it as well. So I think, I hate to give you this answer, but it's like really working with some of the Microsoft reps or like the partner consultants might have some of that like inside track information and kind of best practice, because they could have some tools that, can look at consumption and what you're building out, and then kind of do a comparison of, like you said, when do I need to jump up to a higher capacity, or when do I, scale it down, and are there techniques I can do? So, I mean, I hate to give you a consultant answer, but it depends of what you're going for. But I don't think there is a scientific answer to answer that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're also looking at like reserved capacity, because that's another option, right, to keep things a little cheaper. But then it kind of locks you in, and then we're afraid to pull the trigger on something that may not be sufficient to meet our needs, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. What other questions are there?
Peter has a question. Would it make sense to save as Parquet and let Power BI consume it, or does it matter? So you can save it as Parquet, because if you're doing direct consumption, I think that's the terminology. It's not direct query, but direct lake. It performs best with a Parquet. And so that will perform better, and you will get better speeds at it versus if it's saved as a CSV or whatever the output is. So Parquet definitely will give you, better performance. But then there's, definitely trade-offs depending on like who your audience is and who your users are. Do they understand what a Parquet is? Do they understand like some of the column storage versus the CSV and rows and stuff like that? So, really just making sure that your developers understand what exactly that it is that they're bringing in.
Yep. And from Microsoft's perspective, if you go watch any of their talks or any of their videos on it, right, they're all saying, hey, if you're storing stuff, we're taking everything and putting it into one lake as Delta Parquet files. And so like they're not even really talking about any other types of formats, even though there are other options available to you in a lake. That this is really the one they've been pushing.
Question from Madden.
Yeah, hey, I don't have a question, more of a comment though. So all the Fabric functionality can be enabled or disabled through the Power BI, or now they're calling it the Fabric Admin Console. So at our company, we already had 2 Power BI premium capacity nodes, and we didn't want someone kind of going rogue and building something, so we disabled Fabric. We have it enabled we created an Azure AD security group, and there's a subset of our users that are in that, so they'll be able to play around with it, but we've kind of generally disabled it. So yeah, if you're already in Power BI and you don't see Fabric, your admins may have disabled it.
Probably ASAP.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no way.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, there's a question earlier by Victor. He said, can you have more than one app per workspace? You cannot. You can only have one app per workspace. You can have up to 10 audiences. I would say that you have more than that. That seems like a bit of a limit. But I mean, honestly, I've never hit that limit, but I do know someone who did. But yeah, only one app per workspace. And Andrea was asking, what license does an end user need to access the semantic model? Would they need access to the workspace, or would you be able to expose it to an app? So they would either need a pro license, or the semantic model would need to be backed by premium capacity. And what that means is that either the user has to have a pro license, or you publish it to a workspace that is a premium capacity workspace. The other thing is, in terms of permissioning, being in an app audience by itself is not sufficient. You need quote unquote build permissions on the semantic model. And that gets a little bit technical, and it's actually not the most obvious thing in the world how to provision build permissions singularly. You can sort of even adding someone to a workspace at the lowest level does not grant them build permissions on the data set. And so there is a particular call out you have to look for it where you can grant them of that build permission. And so I think you'd make them the lowest level in the workspace and grant the build permission. And so that way you're not sort of giving them unnecessarily high access to the content in the workspace. But it might, if you wanted to restrict the reports that they can consume, that might complicate that matter.
So I'll take this question. Really love Fabric, want to try DP600 so I can take the certification. Do I have an in-depth knowledge Power BI or anything? Certification for trying out DP600. So I would recommend going through the learning path. Right now, the test is in beta, and I'm actually supposed to take it on Sunday. I'm going to reschedule it. The snow like ruined me, so I would definitely fail it today. But I recommend going through the learning path that they have on there and really going through the guide of it. I think everybody that's taken it, they actually haven't gotten their results back. They wait until it's actually going into general availability, which would be like in March, where I think they even get the results back. So right now, because it's so entry level, you can take it now, or you can wait till it's generally available, and then you kind of give yourself a couple months to really ramp up and get there. So it really depends on what you want to do. But like all of them, I definitely recommend the Microsoft Learning Path and really just going in depth. And then from there, you kind of gauge your own skill sets. So if there's something as you're going through it, you're like, oh, I really don't know this, then kind of focus on that area.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out and joining us today. A reminder that we are set to meet again on February 15th and March 21st. There's a look at our topics for those months, and look forward to seeing you then. And have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.